Namaste, Pranam, Salam, Vanakkam, welcome, Sasrikal, Kabudu all, Game Show, Kasakai. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, this is the time you all waited for. This is the Radio Stars. Well, let me take this minute to first thank Darpan Mehta, the Darpan Mehta, who's conceived and curated this entire India Voice Fest. We are in the fourth year. So before we start off, 4 cheers for Darpan, Sugar Medias, and India Voice Fest. Hip hip, hooray, hip hip, hooray. Hip, hip, hooray. A big cheer right there. Thank you so much, RJ Hemang, for passing on the rating to us, and you have an amazing smile right there. But I'm gonna right now I'm sandwiched between two mega blockbuster superstars. Uh, you know, uh, I have an entire page filled up of introduction, but I'm going to keep it crisp. I'm going to make it action packed. So let me start off with somebody I know I've worked with. I'm going to start off with Archana. Archie, as you fondly call her. Well. If I talk about her 12 years of Kasakai, Mumbai, the morning show, and Ab 11 se 2 Archu ka show. It's such a peppy show. Way before I became a radio jockey, I used to listen to her radio shows, which was Route number 91. Archana, we share that bit. And तब से मैं सुन रहा हूँ. Well, she's the most sought after voiceover artist. She's an amazing RJ. She's the voice of the nation, if I may say. And you've seen her on television. You've seen her in ads. You've seen her everywhere. And now we have the pleasure. Yes, she's also the RJ nominee at New York Radio Forum and the Best RJ Award winner for 2018. Give it up for the superstar, the vivacious. Somebody's got a beautiful voice and she looks gorgeous. Give it up for Archana, RJ Archana Pania. A big cheer.
But I'm most happy to have seen Hemang because he's actually related in a very strange way to me. Mr. Sharma, I'm a Sharma now as well. So hi to Hemang, big shout out. And thank you everyone at India Voice Fest for doing this for us. What pleasure it gives me to be interviewed by, or rather, moderated by somebody who loves radio as much as you do. And someone I look up to, I think the country looks up to, one of the finest minds on radio. आवाज बहुत लोगों की अच्छी हो सकती है, पर अगर कोई इतना well read है और इतना ज़्यादा हर चीज में he has had an experience, and that's Rishi, and he's an absolute Jaan. Like, I will call him Jaan in my life. He supported me, loved me, cared for me, and my journey would have been very incomplete without his loving support. Thank you, Rishi. Love you.
Going to my next super celebrity, yes, Archana. With those words, yes, we all believe in one word, that is discipline and passion. And Rishi stands for both these words together. Well. What should I say about him? He's the producer and presenter on the nation's biggest breakfast radio show on 94.3 Radio 1. He's a podcast creator and an anchor on online platforms like moneycontrol.com and HT Smartcast. Let me tell you, he's a multiple RAPA Promax award-winning radio host, a voice artist, an MC. मैं कभी कभी सोचता हूँ कि एक इंसान इतने सारे काम कैसे कर सकता है. He's also a sports commentator, mind you, and with the repute of commented in Hindi feed of the ICC T20 World Cup, IPL for Sony Max and French Open. His knowledge, I'm telling you, you don't challenge him with his knowledge. कभी वो गलती से भी वो करने की कोशिश मत कीजिएगा, because I know every time he enters that radio station, ladies and gentlemen, he is prepared. He's like a commando going inside there, and I fondly call him the MJ, the music jockey of radio, because he's great at MJ steps. Yes, we've seen him at after parties. That's a secret that I'm revealing right now. But his podcast right now, the Hrishikesh Sessions, is one of the most heard podcasts on Amazon Prime Music. He has his own talent company, where he gives end-to-end solutions for creative and commercial partners, which is Radiohead. So now we have the head, the soul, the heart of radio, Hrishikesh Kannan, formerly known as RJ Hrishikesh, in the house.
My biggest credential is something that you've overlooked. My biggest credential is I'm a massive Darpan Mehta and India Voice Fest fan, which is why I have this huge T-shirt in front of me. And I was saying to Rahul Manjal before we got on, I said, I would like Darpan to run the country. We'd have a lot less problems in this nation if you ran the country, because a man who's an empath, who's so sensitive and who has great organizational skills, and the good people at Sugar Media would do a great job. And well, what can I say about these two incredible people? Like I said, with Rahul, we were colleagues at one point of time. And whenever there was an event at the radio station, by default, it had to be him. because of his charisma and his presence. And I'm, it's like I say with Darpan, radio's loss is MCing's gain in Rahul's case, because he chose a career in MCing, and he continues to be to do very well in that. And his biggest quality is, I think, humility. Humility and truth are the only two things that matter in life. Success is very, very overrated. It's a terribly overrated thing, success. And I think if you have humility and truth, half the battle is won. And what do I say about my baby kin? I call Archana Pania Sharma baby kin, because it represents everything that I feel for her. I feel immense love in my heart for her. Don't for a moment be fooled by the fact that it sounds effortless when she's on the radio. There's a lot of hard work that goes into sounding effortless. And I know she looks sweet 16, but that's 2 decades of experience there. So much as she might be modest and say very vibrant things about me, you have to take cognizance of that. Thank you very much. We've got a limited time, so I've taken too much of it. Rahul, go ahead.
Okay, so here goes. I'm going to pick up from where Rishi started. Archana, you started off way back in 2002, when it was a different scenario altogether.
Yeah.
How did you join radio? Because a lot of aspiring voiceover artists are joining us today. First of all, thanks for joining in, guys. Enjoy this session. It's going to be a crazy 3 musketeers around. So Archana, over to you. How did you join? What was the experience like?
Me joining radio was out of guilt that I wouldn't wake up early. I mean, I'm a bit of a lazy person, and I get a call from this friend of mine who is an amazing artist, and she says, "Are you sleeping? It's 8:30. I have finished my coffee and paper, and you're sleeping. Go and do this RJ hunt." I was actually studying to go abroad to do my master's in art, and I thought, what the hell? Time pass ke liye kya bura hai? And I felt very guilty that I was actually lazing in the house. So I actually went to audition thinking nothing of it. And I feel like life happens to you when you least expect something from it. And that's exactly what happened there. I saw some of the most amazing people from society, whether they were designers, whether they were marketing people, sales guys, and just about anyone, and everyone, and some very established people. So I was like, I don't stand a chance. I've just come here to show face and make my friend happy that I did what she wanted me to do. And little did I know that one of the leading voices of the country, Mr. Jeetu Raj, and there was a lady called Raha Jafri, who was an RJ back then. Both of them still fight over who chose me, but they changed my fate and career. And Rishi, you must know that Jeetu Raj has acknowledged me on Instagram. It has been the biggest moment of truth for me.
Oh, you lucky one. Not for us lesser mortals. Not for us lesser mortals.
This has happened as recently as 3 days ago, and he's been exchanging every 4 days ke baad one note. But the point was to say is that I don't know. I'm a very, very strong Destiny's child. I feel at a very young age, I heard a lot of radio when I was growing up in Kuwait. I'm a Gulf baby, and I think radio was one medium that spoke to me very dearly, straight to the heart. So I would literally pick up, back in the day, guys, we had landlines. I would pick up my landline and I had to wait for the dial tone to go so I could hear myself. So I think for me, my so-called, when they say that when you're growing up, you're kind of warming up to what you want to do and be, I think that was my warm-up to being an RJ. I was in love with my own voice, and I still loved talking. And in every report card, it said, very capable, but too talkative. So now I say that for P for punishment that I got in school, I'm getting P for paid for, talking. And I feel very, very, very humbled and very much in love with the medium, which I think was, is, and will be forever.
Absolutely. Going to you, Rishi, what was your turning point? How did you start? Because that's something we are curious about. I think Archana knows this, but I'm very curious to know how did you start off? Because I believe way back it was the Mirchi movement again.
Mirchi used to be Times FM, the original Avatar. Yes. The Times of India used to run. They used to rent hours from All India Radio. Well, if you see a certain Roshan Abbas, you can blame him if you don't like listening to me. Because he's responsible. He's responsible. If you like me, we can thank him. If you do not like me, you can blame him. Well, it so happened that I used to do a lot of theatre, and Roshan and myself were in the same theatre group. He was, of course, much, much senior to me. He was doing all the leading parts, and myself and a guy called Amit Kilam, who's now drummer of the band Indian Ocean, we used to do all the small parts, And Roshan said to me one fine day, saying, listen, the Times of India is renting some hours from the All India Radio, and why don't you go and give it a shot? They are auditioning people. And I had just passed out of my 12th standard, and I was in my FY, my first year of college. And I was a lot shallower than what I am right now. I was extremely shallow. I was what all 17-year-olds were, which is extremely greedy. And the magic words that he said to me was, "Har show ke 500 rupees milenge." And when you're a 17-year-old kid and you're doing theater, and somebody tells you you're going to get $500 for a gig,
Rishi, I have to cut you. How much did you get for one play?
roughly $350 at the time. So that radio beat us hands down, So anyway, so he said five, and this was the late 90s we're talking about, right? So he went. So my first question actually to him was radio. I mean, I don't know if people still listen to the radio. I know my mother used to listen to Amin Sayani Saab. Aajkal sun rahe ki nahi. So then he said, "Soch lo beta, 500 rupees mil rahe." That's it. Everything else to the side. So I reached there for shallow reasons, and this gentleman called Tapas Sen, who's still part of the system. I mean, Times FM has become Radio Mirchi, but he still runs the establishment in terms of programming. And he said, would you like to write a link? A link in radio parlance is a talk section before a song, which is introducing a song, another link where you're talking to a caller, another link where you're talking to a celebrity, and another link where you're just delivering some information, which might be traffic or the weather or something else. And I tell you this, you can start off for shallow reasons, but there is a gut instinct, and there is a voice, and there is something called being swept off your feet that defies all kinds of logic. So I go into this studio and I put on the headphones, and they're also giving me CDs. Back in the day, we were playing CDs, saying you might want to actually play the songs that you're referring to just to get a more of a live feel. I tell you, Rahul, and I tell you, Archana, I put on the headphones and I started talking, and I just completely was swept off my feet. It was like falling in love for the very first time. So I think there's no greater moral than this, that you might step into certain things for shallow reasons, and then ultimately you might find your soul connection. Whereas normally it's the other way around. People start with soul connections, and then increasingly they find the shallow things in life. So essentially that's the way it happened. I mean, I made it through that, and one thing led to another.
Absolutely. It's just a matter of, you realize that you're made for it. It's just the second you enter the studios, you have that vibe. It's just the thing that comes to us as radio jocks. I, in fact, was a designer. I used to design for Darpan, and way later came a RJ opportunity with Red FM, which was a Michael Allen. That's how I made my way through. But
I really do envy your handiwork. I have to say, I don't know if you knew this, Babykin, but Rahul designed the logo for Sugar Medias back when he was a designer. And this is now.
I've done
sorry,
design, and I was a web designer, so I've done a lot of logos.
I have such limited intelligence when I'm confronted with people like this who are so versed.
Player for the country, that's fine. That's really fun.
So the point I'm trying to make is, you might consider this bias because of my love for Darpan, but I genuinely, even otherwise, if I didn't have that much love for Sugar Medias and Darpan, I would still say that the logo is a very fine logo. So well done on that.
So I think designing is the only thing that Rishi has not officially done. Otherwise, he's done practically everything.
Good one.
Going to my next one, Archana, for you as varied roles of a radio anchor, as a radio star, a superstar, and a voice actor. What's your differentiating factor? How do you look at it? How do you look at it as separately? What's your broad bifurcation?
No, I think Rishi would agree. Radio is life. A lot of my friends who are actors and who think we have a very boring life, they need to think again. We get to talk about everything under the sun, and we get to talk to everyone under the sun. I could have the great honor of, interviewing the Prime Minister of the country, the Honorable Prime Minister, to probably my watchman, and I find that extremely. I don't know how do I say this, but I feel like the world is in meri muthi mein, dunya meri muthi mein types, because I feel like I've been this person since I was very young. I love indulging in conversations with anybody, and I've been very kind to receive this compliment from Rishi. It's like sometimes I feel your solo links aren't half as interesting as your interviews are, because I like people. And I think the reason I chose this over being a web designer or anything to do with the internet and the computer, I was like, hell, I'm going to die thinking of these 100 updates that keep happening of, Illustrator and Photoshop. I'm like, I can't do this. I have to, go into the zone that pleases me. And only thing I told myself was, I'm a people's person. I want to do something that makes me, face more people. And radio, in that sense, is so much more of an everyday experience. You cannot compare that to anything under the sun. Not podcast, not voicing. I've just recently started to dub, thanks to Mona Shetty and team. And I cannot tell you that while all of it is exciting and more, what radio gives, I'm sure Rishi knows, is when you switch on that mic and when you're live, you get goosebumps every day. It's like probably an actor saying, somebody as Manja who has Mr. Bachchan and Anil Kapoor saying, we still get scared, we're still nervous, and you're like thinking, ha. But it's true, I still skip a beat sometimes out of excitement. And that is pretty much what an actor would feel maybe in theatre and what any artist would feel performing their art. So a radio, in a way, is that, because how long can you hold someone's attention if you're talking to them and if it didn't relate to their lives? Somehow it's a really challenging medium, I think. But while it's a challenge, it's so beautiful. I just love the fact that this was the medium that announced our freedom, and it's still relevant to the government and times that we're in. And Rishi and me keep getting asked this कि relevant रहेगा कि नहीं रहेगा, but मुझे लगता है it's one of the dinosaurs that's never going to be extinct, because I really find it a very, very powerful tool for anything and everything, including touching hearts, to making a change, to just being a storyteller of an every order. I think we have lots of things under our.
I'm going to highlight this fact that, Archana, and, at one point in the morning show, you all actually painted speed breakers black and white. And apart from that, you constructed toilets
and
for.
I must tell you about that black and white Holi, because somebody was coming from the United States, from Seattle to be precise, and they had seen this activity we did, so that people don't go zoom on over speed breakers, right? So you won't believe it. Somebody said, "Tu Holi ke time pahunchega na, Radio City black and white Holi khel rahi hai, to tu time pe pahunchega, to Radio City ke sath Holi khelna." They didn't have any idea what we were doing, but thanks to digital media, our activity literally hit worldwide. And I still remember we were on Carter Road painting, and I guess the local authorities got a whiff of it. So they got there an hour after we got there, and they started painting somewhere down the road. So these are such beautiful memories to have of how we've even touched everyday people for things that matter to them. Even today, when I see a speed breaker not painted, I'm like, please paint kar do. What is happening?
Sorry. And on that note, I'm going to go to Rishi. Rishi, एक बात है कि अब ऐसे एक there is this thing in the air, like the second the pandemic struck and all of it, a lot of people challenged television, saying that television is now officially over because Netflix and Amazon Prime and XYZ platforms आ चुके हैं. As a voice, first things first, this is a very important question that I think we should address. आपको क्या लगता है कि ये pattern आने के साथ रेडियो का next level क्या है? And where do you see this going? क्या लग रहा है आपको कि कहाँ पे जा रहा है ये? Is it going to be the end? Is it going to be a new start? क्योंकि आप खुद you've been podcasting, so you're the best person to highlight. आपके हिसाब से क्या हो रहा है?
Rahul, thank you so much for asking that question. Is so important. I think it's really the crux of a lot of things that we're going to talk about today. Let me put it this way: that when the OTT boom happened, people rang the death knell of television and said, the Amazons and the Netflixes and the Z5s of the world are here and nobody's going to watch television anymore. And mainstream television is in its last leg. If you see, Indian Idol and Saregama and Big Boss, as well as Kaun Banega Crorepati, have broken new records as far as viewership is concerned ever since the OTT platforms have come. And my analogy for radio vis-a-vis streaming services and podcasts is exactly that. There will be a defined market for streaming services and podcasts, and radio will continue to exist and successfully exist and flourish. And the only way I can explain that to people who don't understand the difference between streaming services and podcasting and radio is this. Think of streaming services as a car which is chauffeur driven, or you are driving yourself and you're traveling from Sugar Media's in Andheri to Bandra. Now, when you have your own car and you're driving yourself, or you have a chauffeur, you can stop at a Starbucks, pick up a coffee. You can stop and run an errand, give something off for courier, meet a friend on the way. And progress to Bandra, but you still get to Bandra. That to me is a streaming service and podcast service, which is an on-demand service. You ask for the song you want, and you ask for the podcast you want, and hey presto, it comes up. The radio business is like public transport. When you take a bus, when you take a local train, and when you take anything that has to do an overhead metro rail, you have predefined stops. You don't have any choice on where you're going to stop. You have to stop at point A, point B, point C, but you still enjoy the ride. You still get from Sugar Medias in Andheri to Bandra, which are two eminent suburbs for those of you who are not from Mumbai and watching us. So the goal is still achieved. And public transport will never ever die. And you driving your own car along with a chauffeur is never going to go away either. And both will flourish simultaneously. And that's the best way I can describe it. I mean, there are points when public transport will suddenly see a surge, and there are times when private vehicles will suddenly see a surge. Like in times of a pandemic, you probably won't be able to take public transport, and you will be able to take your own transport. And when things are normal, it's the other way around. So I see radio flourishing forever and ever, even in evolved markets like the UK and Australia and America. You see how they're both going hand in hand. So that really is my answer.
Absolutely. You spot on with that. I think it was a perfect explanation. Archie, if I come to you now, the thought being, you've practically seen different phases of radio. I think, here's a question for Rishi also, but I'm going to start off with you.
Rishi's seen it more, yeah.
Yes. So how important is it to be versatile? Because, you specifically to Radio City, you've seen Radio City. Radio City mein koi aisa nahi hai, right from the person at the reception to any intern to the bosses. Everybody knows Archana. It's as simple. Iske liye Archu ka show hai. So, how important is it to reinvent yourself, to be versatile? What's your secret code? I mean, something that has kept you going.
I think I want to thank Erica at this point. She works at Rishi Station, and Erica was my senior. She was the show I was picking calls for and doing OBs for. OBs are outstation broadcast, यानी बाहर की कहानियां जो सड़कों से लेकर हम लोग रेडियो पे रिले करते थे. I asked Erica, if you had to go back in your career and you had to redefine something, what would it be for you? She said it would be, what is my personality on air exactly, like defining it. And at that point, I just chose to be a child woman. I was like, it's boring to grow up. I don't want to be all prim and proper and, like be like this very well-behaved person, because from childhood till date, I think if I love someone, I can practically jump on them. I feel like I have this imaginary doggy tail that wags when I see people I love. And I think I don't want to change that. I don't see there's anything that can replace true joy. And unfortunately, in our country or over the world, if you're a lady or behave like a lady, I was like, I am not doing that. And I'm definitely not doing that on the radio.
Right.
Because I feel radio, again, has an infectious quality about it, that whatever you try and, like, when Rishi speaks, everybody wants to be like, whoa, we want to be like this guy. He's swole, he's well-informed, he's so cool. Like, so obviously you go into that zone. And that's precisely why I feel, I think being a child is always going to be endearing, I think. But I feel the relevance for me has been more because I've luckily had the opportunity of being on practically every time band. And that has somewhere helped me understand my audience. And I think maybe because we caught on the social media, somewhere I feel that was something parallelly that was growing with radio. Radio is one thing, but today my listeners call me and say, we follow you on your account. And that to me makes me realize that how important it has been to be on that platform where the whole world wants to go and relate to you. I'm sure Rishi would agree that all of us have struggled with, acha idhar aa to gaye, karna kya hai? But maybe with me, it's been a khandani bimari that we love to take photographs. Yeah, like my Dadaji had a 10 by 8 feet ka wall-to-wall cupboard full of pictures. Archu in the tub, Archu in the bucket, Archu in her football pool. So I was like, theek hai, ye easy hai, photos. Maybe I can't tweet as much because I find Twitter very toxic for my liking. I don't know what is happening. There is just too much for me to handle. But, Instagram has been, to a certain degree, helped me being relevant in many ways. Having said that, it's also about what people want, right? So whether it's gossip, whether it's talking about things that matter to them in today's time. So in that sense, being relevant is a part of the job. is a part of what you do. It's what you observe, and it's how you come and spill the beans on it, and how you relate those stories. And maybe I've just been very fortunate that people like me, my company likes me, and I'm still employed. Rishi, I think you can answer this better for me than even I can. Yeah, please help.
Rishi, you've been like a voice, and everybody looks forward to this deep baritone, So that brings me to my next question. Firstly, the social media point that Archana mentioned. Do you think it's very important in today's time? How have fans changed right from the time you did win, then Mirchi and all of it together, and to Radio One? Has the fan interaction changed and social media validation? Is it important?
Well, completely. I mean, you've got to stay with the times. I'll be very honest with you. I mean, I think the best way to answer this is by giving personal examples. And I'm so happy that, Archana's really opened her life like an open book and told you about, her personality type and things like that. I had to really work at it, Rahul, Archana, everybody who's watching this. I took very naturally to Twitter because Twitter did not require a photograph to be put in.
Yes.
It just required opinions. Especially over this last decade that social media has come to the fore, I'm extremely, and I'm not ashamed to say this, I'm extremely body conscious. I'm always worried about, it's what they call the obese man's complex or the fat man's complex. You're always worried about how you're looking in a photograph, which I didn't need to worry about on Twitter, because I would just put out an intelligent or maybe what I thought was an intelligent opinion, and I would get reactions. But then I sat down and said to myself, I said, listen, the whole world is on Instagram and doing so well on Instagram. And it's about time that I got my act together, because I have no business saying that I'm a flourishing radio professional if people who listen to me want me to be on Instagram and be successful at Instagram. So I wasn't really concentrating on it. But especially during this pandemic, I'm very proud to say that over the last couple of years, I've become very, very active on Instagram. Absolutely. And I think I have my family to thank immensely, because I'm surrounded by 3 very beautiful women, and which is my wife, and I have with Anchal, and we have an 8-year-old and a 2-year-old.
Yes.
So it's 3 women, and my mother's been spending a lot of time here. My mother-in-law lives down the road. So when you're surrounded by 5 beautiful women who pretty much think you're worth it.
No, you are absolutely.
It just really helps, man, because just think of me like she described her childhood. Think of me as the boy who used to be curled up in the corner reading a book, and then when he would put the book aside, be on a tennis court and just play tennis, which is a solitary sport. It's not a team sport. So I would play tennis, come back, study, play tennis, come back, study, as opposed to other people, like, for example, Archana, or even in my own family, my brother. Extreme flamboyance, the love for the camera, the love for the pictures. And here's a kid on a corner, which is me, suddenly being confronted with the social media scourge. I could either turn around and say, okay, fine, I'll be buried and be irrelevant, or turn around and take up the challenge. I'm still not the best. I'm still learning from people like Archana and yourself, Sid, a lot of these people who are more savvy and to whom it comes very naturally. But I'm proud to say that I'm making a few strides, and that's a lesson for anybody who's listening or watching. I mean, you've got to get your social media act together. There are no excuses anymore.
We've seen those Ranveer Singh Jhappy snaps, and I follow you on Twitter and Insta as well. So I think you're doing a swell of a job, Rishi. And yes, a lot of people don't know, when I was working with Planet Radio City, Archana, you would know, social media interaction was a part of our KRA, So you had to put up posts. Yeah, you have to put up posts because the listeners, which are, it's broadcasted across the globe, Planet Radio City to be specific, you have to put up posts for your listeners to send in your requests and to have that kind of, messages coming on Facebook. Yes, absolutely. Archana, coming to you, one career highlight that was your game changer. One thing that you thought was, it's worth to be on radio. It's that moment of a lifetime. It could have been any point of time in your career, but
I think, like I said, I'm destiny's child, and I believe very strongly in karma. So I think what had happened was, this is around the time I had just got married, 2014, and RA was picking up in a big way in terms of people who were protesting for it, and they needed a strong voice, and they reached out to me, and there obviously was a lot of politics involved, but I was like, who cares about the politics? Let's go and do this for a movement. I love trees. I've always hugged them for some strange reasons. Like I told you, I have this weird quality of hugging everything and loving everything. So trees were a big thing for me, especially because when you grow up in the desert, you don't see as much greenery. So that's another point. But I must tell you, when RA happened, and I think even the toilet thing that you were just mentioning, and I cut you, sorry.
Yes.
It's funny how like the industry that we cater to in a very, very big way, and I'm sure Rishi would agree, like most of the songs on his station, of course, would be not really relevant in Bollywood, but Bollywood is our biggest bread and butter. And I still remember that, Toiletic Prem Katha was about to release, and how many people walked up to me and said, we're so happy Akshay sir's team has seen what you're doing. So I feel it matters when you do things for the larger good. At least it has helped me, because Rishi's career is strongly based on his knowledge base. For me, it's a field-based thing. And God knows that this country needed it. And I think the biggest thing I was proud about, I don't know if that was a game changer at all, was when I went to the farmers and gave them water. I'll never forget that experience, because radio, in that sense, they say think global, act local. I actually went to Sanjay Gandhi Borivali National Park, and I put water in the water holes for the animals there. And, the actual authorities were so excited because I got a truck there, and they said, who thought of this water tanker? And I said, I did. So they said, that's a great idea. And that's when I took water tankers to Ahmednagar, which is where the farmers were going through, a very, very big spell of sukha. And I just felt very, very blessed. I think these little things mattered when the industry talks about it, and when they think, oh, this radio jockey not just using her voice, but she's doing something about it. So, somewhere I feel like that has mattered. Of course, I love Bollywood and everything about it. In fact, when Rishi was talking about how when he went into the studio and put on his headphones, I was only thinking of my favorite actor, Hrithik Roshan. Shares the same first words as Rishi. And he came in and he put on his headphones and he was like, no. And he put on his headphones and he's like, what did, and I just spoke, right? Hey, you got Hrithik. He's like, what did he just do? That was magic. And that's when I realized, like, one of the most good looking men in this country is enamored by the voice space. That magic of voice is never, and thank you again, Darpan and team, because we don't celebrate this medium enough. Because we become, thanks to social media and Rishi, thankfully we're all out there and celebrating ourselves and our lives. But I think it's very, very underrepresented. So, Sashtang Pranam to this medium for, celebrating it, making a festival out of it. So these are very, very big milestones, which I feel need to be discussed more. Because while you can be lip service of just what we think and in and out of songs, I think it also is a huge, I'll never forget, वो farmer के पानी के लिए a 23-year-old professional from the media house came and gave me 40,000 rupees, which was his salary, because he just started work. He just came and he handed it over to me.
It's moments like these that make it so beautiful.
How can he trust me so much? And I'm sure that's what Rishi and me feel is our biggest earning, that our listeners love us and they not just invest time in us, but they really care about what we care about. And what
I want to just pause for a moment here, and Rahul, I think this is fantastic moderation. I've been through a lot of panels where everybody just skims through the surface. These are very pointed, very, very interesting questions. It's obvious that you've thought of these before putting them down. I mean, it's just remarkable. I know this girl for so many years, but you've got her to talk with passion about the environment, and that's because of the line of questioning. So good up, great on you that you're doing what you're doing right now with so much zeal.
Thank you so much, Rishi. I think due credit to also the entire India Voice Fest team and the Sugar Media's team, because they've curated most of these questions, and I'm adding a little bit here and there, but I think due credit to Darpan Mehta and the entire India Voice Fest team, and to you as well, both of y'all. In fact, quickly coming to your side of the story, I'm going to ask you two questions together. The first is obviously the career redefining moment. Baki, in the meantime, जो भी fans हमें देख रहे हैं इस वक्त, please जो भी aspiring radio jocks देख रहे हैं, voice artists देख रहे हैं, please अपने questions please अभी से ही भेजना शुरू कर लीजिए. There's going to be a Q&A session as well. Rishi, एक career redefining moment और एक biggest fan moment, क्योंकि आपकी आवाज में इतना जादू है, Archana and I will agree that Rishi का जब mic fader on होता है और mic चालू होता है, तब लोग आहे भरते हैं. If I may put it across in the Hindi frame.
He got award for the best voice in the country. He has to be given this award. Somebody's listening.
Nobody's challenging that. Rishi, over to you. Biggest fan moment from a fan and radio redefining moment, in whichever order you want to answer.
Yeah, I'd like to talk about radio redefining moments. In the radio business, in the year 2010, 2011, the station that I was working for at the time, I was doing the Hindi breakfast show. And there came a huge crisis situation whereby, the station was not making any money. The owner, who was close to a lot of us at that point in time, turned around and decided to change formats and go back to a format which is English, which he had tried once before and not been very successful at. But something told him that this time around, the second time around, it might work for him. And all of a sudden, I was told that I probably is the only person who's still going to retain my job because of my being bilingual.
Legacy.
And said,
You're not going to say it.
sorry?
Deserving.
Yeah.
Deserving.
So unfortunately, a lot of people did lose their jobs, but I was asked to stay on. But I was asked to stay on saying I have to reinvent the whole show and possibly help in the reinvention of the station. And I just went back and had a very hard think. And I said to myself, and I said to the team eventually, I said, look here, what does radio do in terms of business? What have we heard since the privatization of radio? You only hear somebody coming up and doing a stock update. That's it. Now everything's changed, a decade down the line. I said, why can't we do what CNBC TV 18 or NDTV Profit at the time do, which is get CEOs on, business heads on, and talk business. And I'm saying proper business, not just saying the market opened at this, closed at this, and, the top 5 stocks are this and that, which is what all radio presenters were doing at the time. I said, why don't we have dedicated hours, days, every day of proper business programming? And everybody was like, oh, we don't know how it's going to go. And I said, we should have shows on cars and, have people who, I should just be like the common man who wants to find out what's the best SUV in town or best car in town. And we wrap with experts and, people who do car reviews and things like that. Or we should have tech shows where we talk about what mobile phone to buy, what television to buy. And everybody said, are you nuts? I mean, those are all television formats, man. You can't show the car on radio. And mind you, this was before the social media boom. When I'm saying 2010, 11, it was only Facebook that had come to the fore. The others were just making their mark. Absolutely. And I said, listen, radio is the theater of the mind. Everybody knows that. And if somebody can make sense on car shows and tech shows and business shows, you don't need the visual element.
Absolutely.
And I have to say, 10 years down the line, now everybody seems to be doing it. I mean, even mainstream Bollywood stations do have significant programming devoted to CEOs and business and, car reviews and tech reviews and things like that. That's the first thing that happened. The second thing that happened in this country was the perception of what English radio should be. It was always like the Hindi guys are doing bhaiyon aur behnon aur kaise hain aap, or talking in a hybrid mix of Hindi and English. People like Archana and others, the cool Hindi presenters, and they play Bollywood music. But the English stations have to sound aspirational. The guy has to speak either Queen's English or have accented English and stick to only international content. And I said, look here, that's rubbish. I mean, I should sound on air like how I sound regularly. A guy who's been to an English medium school and a guy who anybody who reads the Times of India or the Hindustan Times in the morning should be able to follow me. Why should I speak highfalutin Queen's English with an aspirational accent just because I'm playing English music? And they said there's going to be no Bollywood at all, because you're going to only interview Ed Sheeran, Selena Gomez, because you're international. You have to differentiate yourself. And I said, look here, man. And it's not rocket science. I wasn't the first person to do it. Rajiv Masand and Anupama Chopra, who are dear friends of mine, who I have so much love and regard for, were doing that. They were speaking to Bollywood professionals in English. And then Coffee with Karan had blown up. What was Coffee with Karan? It was a show in which the guy was speaking to his guests in English. And I was like, if Anu can do it, and if Rajiv can do it, and if Karan can do it, we can have a Friday show every Friday in which I'm rapping with movie stars on, hey, what's your playlist like this week, man? And we all know that the lingua franca, unless it's the Pankaj Tripathis or the Nawazuddin Siddiquis, where they speak Thet Hindi and Urdu, full respect to them. The rest of them all went to English medium schools like you and me. and who are just cool urban people. And the lingua franca on sets in Bollywood movies, and Archana knows this better than anybody else, is English. They all speak in English. They hang in English. Even when Archana goes for a Hindi interview, the pre-talk and the post-talk, before the mic is switched on and off, is English. So I said, look here, it's a no-brainer. And the sales and marketing guys came around and said, no, what nonsense, this can't happen. We have to have a differentiating factor. So I said to my owner, I said, give me 2 weeks. Give me 2 weeks. Let me do a car, let me do cars, let me do tech, let me do business, let me do Bollywood. And then pronounce judgment in 2 weeks. And there was nobody in the station, not even the CEO of the station, who believed in what I wanted. And they said, no, if it's international, it's got to be American top 40. You have to talk that. You ignore India.
Yeah.
Bro, after 2.5 weeks, they came back to me. The sales guys came back to me and said, ये Bollywood सिर्फ Friday को क्यों हो रहा है? ये Monday to Thursday नहीं हो सकता. अच्छा, ये car सिर्फ Tuesday क्यों हो रहा है? ये और नहीं हो सकता. So, I mean, the point I'm trying to make is, I mean, like I said, it's not rocket science. Television was doing it. I just saw how we could fit it into radio. And I just went ahead and took a chance. And I was lucky enough to have an owner who turned around and said, even if your bosses don't think so, and the sales and marketing team doesn't think so, I'll give you 2 weeks. Go ahead and do it. So just lucked out, and combination of some hard work, some fitment, and some luck.
And I fondly remember the owner also has been a radio jockey, so I think that's where it comes from. He-Man being one of them.
He's now he wanted to retire when he was 60. He's 57, and he retired with I don't know how many crores in the bank, and he has a bamboo villa in Bali, and I'm very happy for him.
The future of radio. Okay, quickly coming to Arshu, the importance of training. I know we're in the last 15 minutes of our conversation, so I'm going to keep it a little pacey. The importance of training. This is लोग बोलते हैं अरे आप तो सिर्फ बात करें. That's a usual thing we radio jockeys face. Either we receive compliments or we receive this talk saying that अरे यार आप तो सिर्फ बात कर रहे हो ना, 3 घंटा बात करना है, 4 घंटा बात करना है, 5 घंटा बात करना है, क्या लगता होगा? So what is the importance of training for a show and as a voice artist?
I think at Mirchi I got fabulous training because we were constantly being I think somewhere we were being pulled into international markets of how radio, because it's run, private FM stations have run far more longer there, and obviously they understand the science behind how to keep audiences hooked. So there is a certain science to it which one can wrap themselves around and learn and train themselves for. But I think it's predominantly, the grammar of radio is predominantly being a good speaker. You don't have to be a people's person because you're literally char diwaron mein care, then you're talking to yourself. So it's a bit lunatic in that sense. But I think it's got a lot to do with how you say what you say and how precisely you can say it in lesser words. So less is more. And I think to that extent, if people can self-analyze, I don't know about Rishi, but I have to actually write down my links because all of us, we think more English, and I had to train myself into going all Hindi for radio, and that was a process because both of us are at Mirchi when this transition was happening. Earlier it was 18-20 or maybe 19-10 English is to Hindi, and it became the other way around. And then at one point it was like no English, so they knew what sells, at the end of the day for masses. And I think that took a lot of personal training for me because my burr and hers and Rishi seems to be very, very eloquent with both the languages, but I had to really work at it. And I think for anyone who's aspiring to be a radio jockey, the importance is to listen. It's, sorry to say, but like they say, when you're watching a movie, if you can even imitate, that's a starting point of you becoming an actor maybe, or a voice artist.
Voice actor.
And I think, that imitation was happening from school. Teacher jaise classroom se gayi, I want to be the teacher. I was there doing everything she did. So I think becoming a parrot was not so tough, but how are you going to be an effective so-called speaker or parrot? And for that, you needed training. And I definitely think training helps because when the experts tell you how to keep people's attention, hold on to that attention and speak more effectively, it can be a matter of, huge change and tweak to how you would approach it. But having said that, it's a personality-driven medium. So it is about how आप अपनी जान और आप अपनी personality उसके अंदर कैसे घोल सकते हो, क्योंकि what will stand apart is what is different about you, and that every medium is going to ask. So, while we listen to Rishi, we know there's no one like him. You just know it's
Absolutely.
not just the voice, but it's about how he presents. Like, he said so much and you didn't feel he spoke so much. Like, he said so many things. And
Yes.
that is frankly the biggest challenge of radio. And sometimes you can be so verbose that somebody will just switch the channel. So there's a lot of science. And I feel I would give a good 80% to training for sure. I know that the reason I've stood test to time is also because how Mirchi trained us. I don't know, Rishi, you didn't need it so much, but it had helped me a lot.
Rishi, you're somebody who meticulously scripts his show. अगर Sunday morning classics है तो Saturday night को ऋषि रात के 12 बजे ही सही लेकिन पूरी स्क्रिप्ट के साथ आएंगे and you are somebody who's disciplined and passionate. So ये सवाल आपके लिए है कि एक लोग आपको पूछते हैं कि ऋषि के जैसी डी बैरिटोन आवाज आप कैसे करते हैं? How do you train yourself for it? And how do you manage that online, the morning show pressure that you have right now?
Yeah, I think the voice is something I can't take credit for. It's all genes. My father has just the most mellifluous voice ever. Girls used to call up when we were in school and they would say, "Oh, who is that?" And I'm like, "Excuse me, it's my father, for heaven's sakes." And he has no background in the business. I mean, he was an engineer, an MBA, retired as vice president and CEO of L&T, which is an Danish engineering company. But I can't take any credit for that. Actually, Archana's answered most of that in terms of what you need. But I'll tell you from personal experience, again, it always helps when you throw things like that. So, I come from a traditional Tambram family where I was told very categorically that I have to complete my master's at the minimum. So if you remember from the beginning of the session, I started working when I was in my FY of college. So my 3 years of college, I worked through that. And then, my dad said, it's time to do your master's. And then I struck a compromise and I said, as opposed to doing an MBA or doing a master's in something else, I'm really passionate about radio. So maybe I should do a communications course. And I wrote the entrance exam. I cleared the interview at the Xavier's Institute of Communications. At that time, this is the late 90s, early 2000s. They used to have a postgraduate course called Film, Television and Radio Production. I'm not sure if it still exists. And our biggest advantage was that since Xavier's College, Xavier's Institute of Communications had its own studio. A lot of voiceover artists would know that, they would go and voice there. And as a student, you were given unlimited time there. So apart from my work at the radio station, I also, when I went to college in the day, I was working nights at the radio station. In the daytime, I would get to spend a lot of time in studio because of the college that I went to. And it's not just XIC, but even if you ask students from Jamia Millia Islamia in Delhi or the IIMC, a lot of communication courses now have in-house studios where they spend a lot of time. And I understand that, and I believe firmly that people who are able to use a combination of work experience and a combination of what an instructional course can teach you. You ask anybody who passes out of a Sugar Media's course for voiceovers or a Coders course or a Francois course, what they get out of it. They will tell you that the time they spent in studio was most valuable.
Absolutely.
And likewise, that's what the course did for me. I mean, I got out with a master's and things like that. But if you ask me, mota, it was the time spent in studio, getting that extra time to just play around with the gear, which added that level of confidence.
Absolutely. I mean, I used to design for Sugar Media's. Yeah, please.
Would you add that also, like, because I was growing up in Kuwait and I was listening to a lot of radio there, and I think listening can make it so much more easier for you to make it your own flavor of where you want to take it from there. I think
oh my God, you've stolen the words from I didn't listen to enough radio. I got into radio and then I started listening to the radio. And, because like I told you, I was doing theater. And when I got this opportunity, I was like, radio, I don't know, and, things like that. The fact that you heard so much of radio before you even got into it, I think that is phenomenal, because then you already had a head start over a lot of us who came in from the cold, who had to pick up even basics, but at least you were listening to presenters, whether they were good, bad, ugly, whatever.
No, the reason I bring that up is because a lot of interns that come and join radio today don't listen enough to it, and then they don't know what they want to do with it. So, then you're like cold turkey, and you can't expect the kind of leverage that Rishi and I got, because when
Absolutely.
I started off, private FM was just starting, and they kind of saw the zing in me, but they gave us that time. They honed us. They literally invested in us. With
Right,
Rishi,
right.
I think it's personal grooming, because from his background, I feel like he's always been somebody who's intellectually stimulated with all that he reads and he touches upon, and he's passionate. So then it comes in
Bilkul,
your
bilkul.
conversation. I think he's probably self-made in that sense. But I just feel for the youngsters, and this is purely for people who've joined us, please,
Right.
please listen, because then you can do what you want with it. But if you don't even know what you're catering to, I think sometimes you have a disadvantage of not being able to know that what all is possible on radio, and there's lots that's possible.
Absolutely, absolutely. And last 4 minutes to go, but quickly coming into my next one. Yes, in fact, when I was designing for Sugar Medias, I used to think कि काश कभी वो studio में अंदर वो mic के पास जाने का मौका मिले. So then that's that moment that you actually look forward to. Every time you enter that studio, there's that vibe that comes to you. I believe all of y'all will agree. And now, one thing that this is a question coming in from all the aspiring RJs. How do we enter the industry? What's that make or break
Rishi,
moment?
you go first.
Yeah, you have to make a voice tape, a show reel, where you put in a few links of yours, and you just get numbers and contacts of programming people, and you just keep mailing them at various stations. And you just keep following up. I'm not saying a breakfast radio show will fall into your lap. A lot of us, and Rahul will tell you, because Rahul used to work the graveyard shift at radio stations. When I used to come in the morning to do my Bhule Bisre Geet, my Hindi classics show, he would have been doing the graveyard shift at night. You probably put on 11 to 1 or 2 to 5, but it's a start. I mean, it's a great way, and there'll be enough inebriated people or people coming back from parties listening to you
Yes.
who will give you feedback.
Absolutely.
But then that's really the way to go about it. And some other people try another route, which is they try and get into programming, which is, they try and be producers or assistant producers and give feelers to their programming managers saying, listen, hey, I'm here to do some radio jockeying as well. You can use me for traffic, for bulletins, maybe weekend shows, and then maybe I can graduate.
सही बात है. अर्चना, आपका टेक क्या है? कुछ जो आप कहना चाहती हैं for our audience?
Same ही है. When a Ranbir Kapoor can be sweeping the floor in an SLB movie as a production boy, I don't see why this generation shies away from doing, sorry to use the word, but dirty work. I don't know if he's gone through that phase, but when I joined the radio, for the first 2-3 weeks, I was picking up calls for the breakfast show. And that was my biggest learning ground, like to talk to my listener. Because at the end of the day, all of us in any field are salespeople. We're selling our art, or we're selling our craft, or whatever is your plus. And if you don't know your customer, you don't know your end user, how are you ever going to get good at it? So that for me was a very, very big learning ground. And if I had to put up this attitude of why should I pick up calls? I've been hired as a radio jockey, give me my show, it would have been a very big disadvantage. I think the best way to enter radio is please work as an intern, see if this works for you. Is it in your bones and blood to do this? Give it your best, even if it's not paid for. And if you think you already have it, I think what Rishi is saying is best. आजकल phones में recorders हैं यार, और लोग तो इतने tech savvy हो गए हैं, they can produce it on their laptops and their whatever. So just have those. If you have those tools and you know how to, if kids are becoming YouTubers at like 9 and 8, I think it's not tough for you to kind of put your tape together, like he said. And I thought that people walk in, who knows, आपको देख के कोई खुश हो जाएगा, बोलेगा हाँ जाओ. But I feel, I know it sounds wrong here, but I feel interning is what will give you that insight, because people in radio always need extra hands, and it's wonderful if you have the chance to probably imagine if you're interning with Rishi, like just imagine the plethora of knowledge and exposure and what all you will get.
Absolutely.
So yeah, don't shy away from working for free, and remember my Ranbir Kapoor example, please.
I wish this conversation can go on forever, but due to paucity of time, any last closing messages for India Voice Fest? There are lots more lined up. Rishi, starting off with you.
Darpan, we love you. Sugar Medias, thank you for all that you do for us. And India Voice Fest, come on. those of you who are watching, listening, please go tell your friends about it. There's lots more to come. They can get in their tickets and join us.
Right. Archana.
I just want to say, in the world that everything it's become so visual because of Instagram and beyond, I think I'm super proud to be part of anything that's related to voice, because मैं हमेशा ये बोलती हूँ कि आवाज जब आप किसी की सुनते हो ना, वो तो सीधा दिल में और आत्मा में चली जाती है. So please come be a part of this gorgeous medium, and if you have stalwarts like Darpan who are taking it forward with such elan, and I mean God, how much hard work. He's lost his voice, I believe, over this fest. I love you too, Darpan. I totally ditto what Rishi is saying, in the same fervor and with the same feel, because very few people stand up for us, and you
Absolutely.
are a guiding star. Thank you, and I'm super happy and proud to be a part of this panel with Rishi, who I love dearly. Thank you.
A big shout out for Darpan, everybody. And since this is a social media generation, I'm
sorry that RJ needs itching to ask, Mr. Rahul, how have you stayed the same? How can you look the same as me? What is the problem with you? Something
Hemang shares the same secret. Hemang ने वही secret मुझे pass on किया है.
Hello, how are you doing? I've been enjoying listening to the conversation. It's very fruitful, very enlightening, and no doubt, I've been reading the questions. There's another panel which Rahul has not able to see. So I thought before you guys go,
you need to somehow get screenshots of this for our Instagram, okay? So somehow, a big shout out everybody. I don't know what this, Archana. Any pose that we can pick up on, okay? Like this, or a fun pose. Or... Okay, let me try this one. Okay, Mike. Everybody with the mic. Whatever is your pose.
I have this one.
India Voice Fest rocks.
Got that.
Wonderful. Over to you, Hema.
Before you guys disappear. Okay, here is a question. There were college students who said, how do we get into the industry and stuff like that? You have answered it in quite a broad way, specifically when it comes to the writer's perspective, a copywriter. Like right now, everybody is only looking at radio jockey, because that's like the face of the radio station, and that has star value, lots of aspirations there. But the question is, I'll just make it a little more precise, though it's a pretty elongated one. Can, as an intern, a college student approach a radio station to do other jobs which are behind the scene? And what would they be? If you can just name them, the various students would have a...
Interns are our favorite people, Archana.
Don't say a lot, you'll scare them.
No, writing out our links that Rishi started off describing what it is, like when we talk.
Yeah.
So if we need to kind of get a little insight into their brains as to what are they thinking and how are they thinking. So when they come in, they start becoming writers, maybe even produce a few of our promos, which is what, is talking and describing our shows. And just generally being of some help in terms of research. And maybe even when, sometimes when stars come in, we want to ask something a little different and twisted. And maybe the young lot have that kind of line of questioning. There's so many things. They can work with the music team. They can work with the production team. They can work with sales and marketing. But of course, like you said, if RJing and programming is their thing, and most people who join radio, like even some of my sales people wanted to be RJs. So I'm like, oh my God, everybody wants to be an RJ. So I think it's just the best exercise is to be an intern and to just do everything that the RJ is asking of you. I know I'm making us sound like gods and masiyas, but they don't listen. I don't know, Rishi, if you're having the same issue, but I am like, what happened? Why is everyone shy of working? Like, what is the issue here? So sometimes
the reason I said we love interns is, let me just complete that, is because HR departments don't have to justify big salaries and put them on the rolls. That's what I meant, just to clarify. Secondly, I'll give you classic examples of what interns are doing right now. So we have the radio station that I work for, we have a music manager called Kobart Mobadjina. Now Kobart programs songs, and for example, the night has classics. So there is an intern who helps him, who actually takes out the PPL report, which is what kind of royalties get paid to what station. But other than that, she's also sitting and learning with him how one song flows into another in RCS, the radio computing systems. and how you can actually set playlists based on tempo, mood, formatting. So that's one job, which is music management. The other job, of course, is digital, which is so massive.
Oh, yes.
All radio station stations are now building teams of digital people who are filming for them,
Yeah.
or out on the ground with the radio presenter. How to make bite-sized videos for Instagram and larger format videos for YouTube. Interns come in there. Interns come in producing promos or promotionals for 30 seconders and 60 seconders for clients and agencies who come in and do that kind of stuff.
Also,
And of course,
also-
interns will also help the stars park their cars and bring them up.
I'm going to add to this. A very big example is Hema. You were a part of college radio way back. We used to be in the same studio,
Yes.
and
Yeah.
we had this thing called College Champions, which used to be on college radio. So this was a direct entry to becoming a radio jock. Glenn and
Yeah.
Ritu won it that year. Okay, and now Glenn is the morning jock at Fever. So speaks for itself. There's also a shortcut, but you need to look out for RJ hunts that keep on happening from different radio stations from time to time.
True that.
I just want to tell
Yeah,
everyone here, Hemang was
Yeah.
the heartthrob of every woman in my college.
Oh,
Whoa.
only women, not the girls.
Like, teachers were like, our life has been useless that we didn't get this man. It was that looks he would get in college. Like, I was like,
He
"Iska
still
to
gets
bhai."
it. He still gets it.
Hemang, I'm so proud to have been going to college with you. Thank you.
Yeah, same here. And I can never forget we doing that dance on stage and everybody being jealous,
I
about
have
that
those
dance
photographs.
performance.
I have those photographs.
that.
I will send them.
We'll share. But this session and India Voice Fest, the festivities, you guys brought in a lot of energy, you brought in a lot of insights. And to answer that one particular question, I'm buying more time here since there were questions and we have the next panel still to get online.
Oh,
Brother,
So
you can
you
count
can
on
relax,
us. We're
Rahul.
radio
I know,
presenters. I mean,
Rahul.
you'll have to
Yeah.
get us to shut up. we can talk till kingdom come.
True that. And when all of us get together on the same panel, it'll be like crazy. I know, I imagine that. हम थोड़ा offline भी बात कर ही लेंगे. भाषा के बारे में एक सवाल था, जैसे कि कई सारे कमेंट्स आ रहे हैं कि अंग्रेजी में ही बातचीत हो रही है और हम अगर इंडिया वॉइस फेस्ट सेलिब्रेट कर रहे हैं तो जो सुनने वाले हैं उनको हम बता दें कि इस भाषा का भी उपयोग किया जाएगा अलग अलग पैनल्स में. अलग अलग जो भी सेलिब्रिटीज आएंगे, जो भी पैनलिस्ट्स आएंगे, वो अपने अपने सुविधा अनुसार भाषा का उपयोग करेंगे.
अरे
मगर
पहले
as
बता देते
RJs
यार, तो पूरा हिंदी में बात कर लेते. पहले
कर
बता
लेते.
देते.
नहीं मैं आपसे खाली कहलवाना चाहता हूँ कि आप इस नेक्स्ट जनरेशन या इंटर्न्स या जो इस इंडस्ट्री में घुसना चाहते हैं, आप बता दें उन्हें कि भाषा की कितनी इंपॉर्टेंस है और किस तरह का एक बैलेंस मेंटेन करना जरूरी है, और इज इट गुड इनफ टू हैव अ कमांड ऑन वन पर्टिकुलर लैंग्वेज? हाउ डज इट रियली हेल्प?
बिल्कुल भी नहीं. सॉरी, आई एम कटिंग इन बटिंग इन, बट मैंने रफ्तार का रिसेंटली इंटरव्यू लिया था और उन्होंने जो हरियाणवी का मतलब रैप का एकदम स्टार लाइक बना दिया है. तो मैंने उनसे पूछा कि कैसे लग रहा है आपको कि आपकी हरियाणवी तो आजकल फिल्मों में भी इतनी हिट चल रही है. तो उन्होंने बहुत सही बात बोली. उन्होंने बोली फाइनली भारत को समझ में आ गया है और सिनेमा को समझ में आ गया है कि हमारे जो छोटे छोटे जो हैमलेट्स है और वहाँ की जो भाषाएं हैं उससे हमारा भारत देश बनता है. अब हम में से सबको वो नसीब अच्छा नहीं हुआ है. जैसे कि ऋषिकेश ने मेंशन किया कि अगर आप कोई भी इंसान जैसे नवाजुद्दीन सिद्दीकी को ले लो या एक्चुअली पंकज त्रिपाठी को ले लो, इन लोगों की अपब्रिंगिंग में इतना रस था उनके भाषा का कि मैं तो कहती हूँ कि भाई अगर आपके अंदर कोई 10 भाषाएं भी समाई हुई है ना, सारी की सारी निचोड़ के निकाल दो. क्योंकि ऋषि भी एग्री करेगा कि वो जीतूराज जो है वो हमारे शहर में इतने पॉपुलर इसलिए हैं क्योंकि हम तो मेट्रोपॉलिटन ठहरे, तो हर भाषा के लोग यहाँ समाते हैं. और अगर एक ही इंसान 10-10 भाषाएं बोल रहा है तो कहीं ना कहीं वो आपके दिल को छुएगा ही छुएगा. तो जैसे आई डोंट मिस एन अपॉर्चुनिटी टू झाड़ो माय सिंधी ऑन द रेडियो. एंड देन विद रणवीर सिंह एंड ऑल दीज हैपनिंग सिंधीज अराउंड, आई एम लाइक whoa, Sindhi chokro. I have gone out and I've been, obviously people are thinking क्या कम्युनिस्ट बन रही है, but I'm like listen, इंद्रधनुष क्यों ब्यूटीफुल है? क्योंकि इसमें अलग रंग है. उसके अलग अलग रंग जब शाइन होते हैं तब वो सुंदर दिखता है. आपके अंदर भाषाएं कूट के उसको निकालिए. बस यही है कि आपका रेडियो स्टेशन वो चाहे तो ज्यादा सुंदर होता है, क्योंकि जैसे ऋषि के रेडियो स्टेशन पे अंग्रेजी चलती है और हमारे रेडियो स्टेशन में कोई भी भाषा चलेगी, प्रेडोमिनेंटली हिंदी चलेगी।
डाडो सुट्ठो movement.
That was
अच्छा,
a very
इस पे
comprehensive answer. I'm sure
एक
it
सेकंड,
has
एक
cleared
सेकंड,
all
इसमें मैं
the
ऐड
doubts
करूं
about
क्या?
language out here. आप कंक्लूड
अच्छा
जरूर
देखिए,
कर
दो,
सकते हैं।
हाँ जी, दो चीजें हैं, एक तो है राष्ट्रभाषा, एक है प्रदेश का भाषा। तो राष्ट्रभाषा हिंदी, एफएम रेडियो में क्या है कि हर एक प्रदेश में आप जाते हैं तो लोकल लैंग्वेज का उपयोग किया जाता है। तो अगर आप तमिलनाडु में गए तो लोग तमिल बात करते हैं, अगर आप कर्नाटक में गए तो कन्नड़ा में बात करते हैं। तो जो जिन रेडियो स्टेशंस में राष्ट्रभाषा का उपयोग किया जाता है उसमें आप हिंदी में बात करें, और अगर आप उस प्रदेश के वासी हैं, निवासी हैं, तो उस प्रदेश के लैंग्वेज को भी जाने, पहचाने और उसमें बात करें। ठीक है, तो दीज आर टू थिंग्स, ये दो चीज़ें हैं जिनसे आपको बहुत फ़ायदा होगा। दूसरी बात ये कि आशुतोष राणा जी से मेरी बात हो रही थी पिछले हफ्ते। कुछ चुनिंदा मीडिया वालों को बुलाया गया था लोनावला, चूँकि रवीना टंडन कम बैक कर रही थी किसी पिक्चर में जिसमें आशुतोष राणा भी भूमिका निभा रहे हैं। तो आशुतोष ने मुझसे कहा कि उन्होंने एक फिल्म की थी सोन चिड़िया। तो बोले भाई ऐसा है कि सोन चिड़िया में जिस भाषा का उपयोग हम लोगों ने किया था बुंदेलखंडी, उसमें सिर्फ बुंदेलखंड के निवासी या उस एरिया के निवासी या एमपी के निवासी उसे समझ पाए, बाकी पूरा देश जो है वो अनजान रह गया कि ये बोल क्या रहे हैं। तो बोले कि भाई अच्छी खासी फिल्म थी, पिट गई। तो भाषा का रेलेवेंस ये भी है कि जो आप बात कर रहे हो सामने वाला समझे और ज्यादा से ज्यादा लोग उसे समझ पाए। तो इतना मत घुस जाइएगा किसी भाषा में कि उसकी रेलेवेंस जो है बहुत कम ही लोग या एक नीश वाली ऑडियंस ही जान पाए। और जहाँ तक अंग्रेजी का सवाल है, भाई वी स्पोक बिकॉज वी डिडंट नो, कल को आप बता देते तो हम बात कर लेते हिंदी में, माफी चाहता हूँ। तो anyway.
Thank you so much. Thanks for everything that you shared from your heart. Really appreciate Rahul, Archu, and Rishi Kannan.